X-Men Mutant Academy 2, released in 2001 for the original PlayStation, courtesy of Activision and Paradox Development, and this is the sequel to X-Men Mutant Academy. That is to say, it is as much of a sequel to the first Mutant Academy game as Super Street Fighter 2 is a sequel to regular Street Fighter 2. You're getting the same game you got before. All the characters from the previous game are still there, along with their movie costumes and such. But now you've got new characters to play with and some new moves. And Professor X, who is underwhelming. Oh, and Spider-Man's here too, because sure, why not? We've got a new Spider-Man game to sell. What's wrong with a little cross-promotion? If he's good enough for Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, he's good enough for Mutant Academy 2. Anyway, Mutant Academy 2 brings back the cast of the first game, adds in a few new mutants, Forge, Psylocke, Rogue, Havoc, and even the Juggernaut bitch. That's still a thing, right? Anyways, one mutant who didn't make the cut was Pyro, who remained exclusive to the wretched Game Boy Color version of the first Mutant Academy game, but that's okay because nobody gives a shit about Pyro, and anyone who tells you otherwise is a lying sack of fecal matter. It's rather telling that this is just an expanded version of the previous game because the new characters only have 3 costumes, 2 of the same costume with different colors, while those featured in the previous game now have 4. In addition to the 3 from the previous game, the Mutant Academy veterans have an unlockable 4th costume based on their then current appearance in the comics at the time, so you're not stuck with 90s nostalgia or whatever the case may be. The game also maintains the same modes as the previous game. An arcade mode where you pick a fighter and beat up a bunch of other fighters to get an ending video that's at least of better quality than the previous game, which isn't saying much but still. You still have the versus mode for 2-player fun, the survival mode, and a comprehensive academy mode, which is a training and tutorial tool that teaches you how each fighter works and how to pull off their moves, which makes up for the lack of a move list option in this game. However, just so you're not completely lost, the loading screens also include inputs for your character's 3 super moves, which is a nice little novelty because I find myself forgetting these moves every so often, especially those with specific button sequences. So to make a long story short, if you've played the first Mutant Academy game, then this is pretty much old hat. A straightforward one-on-one 2.5D fighter where you beat the crap out of each other and fill up your 3 super meters on the bottom to execute your 3 types of supers. The standard one, the one powered by quick time events that you have to perform a little quick time technique in order to increase the damage you do, and your big extreme move, which got a bit of a tweak in its execution in that you no longer have to mash the X button to enable it by assembling the little X icon. It does that on its own. The game also allows you to delegate some super energy from one meter to another by tapping buttons if you fancy charging a specific super for specific situations. Another new thing that was added to Mutant Academy 2 is the ability to launch your opponent into the air and perform some air combo things, bringing in an element of play that was quite popular in those Capcom Marvel fighters. It works about as well as you'd expect, which means anyone who can use air combos should get more out of this than others. But for the most part, the overall gameplay remains the same for the most part. Solid action, consistent speed save for the dramatic super moments, controls as slick as ever for better or worse, and there's slightly more stuff to play with, so that makes things a bit sweeter. Mutant Academy 2 hasn't seen much of an upgrade over the previous entry in the graphics department, which is fine because the graphics are still pretty good here. Good character models that animate well enough, some good background settings even if most of them are just recycled bits from the previous game, although the Daily Bugle setting does have advertising for Activision's newest Spider-Man game at the time, so that's something I suppose. The video sequences you get for beating the arcade mode and the tutorial are a little better. They're brief, but a little scene plays out that makes sense, and the CG is a little better quality this time around. So it's a step up at least? Kind of, I guess. Probably not. Sound-wise, much like the previous game, not much. Sound effects are alright, the vocal bits are fine, I guess, whatever. And the music's, again, nothing memorable, exciting, or anything like that. It's okay, but it's also forgettable, much like every other PS1 soundtrack. Whatever. Yeah. Not much to say there. Sorry. Overall, X-Men Mutant Academy 2 is X-Men Mutant Academy 1 with more stuff. And if you like the first game, then you'll dig this one just the same. But if you didn't think too highly of that game, there's little here that's going to change your mind. But if you've never played the first game before, it's worth giving a shot. In any event, there's more stuff to play with here, bigger roster and such. Given the choice, I'd say go for the sequel since it's the more filling package, but either way is good, so yeah.